What's the most hurtful thing you've overheard about yourself by accident? My best friend's story, not mine, but figured it's worth sharing. We'll call her Carrie. She was born super premature, but she ended up completely fine, like you would never know unless you saw the pictures of when she was born. Anyways, when she was around 8, she was at the top of the stairs, head peeking through the banister, secretly listening to her parents argue downstairs about how her dad was too hard on her brother for his grades. Her mom says, "Well, why aren't you that hard on Carrie? She doesn't get straight A's either." And her dad responds, "Carrie was born premature, she's probably retarded." Went out to a bar with some friends for a birthday party for my ex-girlfriend. She really messed me up when she left me, like really bad, but I was trying to be nice since she invited me, so I figured I'd go out and be there for a drink or two. So, a mutual friend who had been broken up with a few days before and was there, so as I made the rounds I talked to her and tried to do whatever I could to let her know it would be okay. I'm no therapist, but I did my best, you know? I knew what a bad breakup felt like, as I was also going through one, so I tried to help. Anyways, after I left the table, I overheard her talking to my ex at the bar about me trying to give her advice, and she said, "Well, nobody has ever loved him, so what does he know about any of this?" And they started laughing. Don't think they know I heard, but I grabbed my coat immediately and took a long walk home. I don't need people like that in my life, haven't willingly seen either of them since. When I was in middle school art class, something funny happened and I let out a loud laugh. I then overheard one of my childhood best friends whisper to another person, "God, I hate Trader 2488's laugh." I immediately looked at him and said, "What?" And he just looked down at the table like he didn't hear me. This actually made me change my laugh. It's completely different from what it used to be. I had just moved into my dorm for my second year of college. My roommate was my best friend since 9th grade. My stuff hadn't arrived yet, and it was my time to register, so I asked him if I could use his computer. He said sure. I sat down, and he had AIM open to a conversation with another friend of ours. I didn't scroll up, but from what was just visible on screen, they were talking about how weird I was and how awful it would be rooming with me. I closed it so he wouldn't realize later I'd seen it, registered, and left. We still lived together that year, but we didn't hang out at all. We just cohabited. I never asked him to hang out as friends, he never asked me. Move out day that year was the last time we spoke. That was over 10 years ago. We chatted every day for 6 years, then haven't spoken since. I still don't know if I did or said something to flip how he felt about me, or if he never really liked me to begin with. The possibility of the latter really fucks up your future friendships. Hell, the former does too, knowing apparently you're capable of unknowingly saying or doing something to throw away a 5-year friendship. Everyone I'd invited to my first sleepover laughing while reading my diary entries about how my dad had been abusing me. I'd left the room and one had gone snooping. It was worse when they wouldn't stop or give it back when I burst in and pleaded with them too, then everyone laughed even harder. That was the first and last time I wrote anything real like that in a diary. My wife had a falling out with some friends of mine that she met through me. We had known them a long time, but I had known them for much longer. I was upset with her one night, because they were always asking why she never came around anymore, but she absolutely refused to see them. I always thought it was because of this little side business project they went into together that didn't work out. So I'm driving my wife somewhere, and I just start getting upset with her that she won't make up with them and move past it like they did, and it sucks that she never comes with when I go over there. So she finally broke and told me the truth. Every time she went over there without me, they would talk shit about me, putting down my personality, my humor, and much more. I guess they thought she would be okay with it, like a joking "ha, my husband can be such a, insert something, right?" But she wasn't okay with it. She's not a confrontational person, so she never really spoke up, but she was disgusted by the way they spoke about me behind my back, and refused to have anything to do with them. She had been letting me think it was all her fault, and she took it because she knew the truth would hurt my feelings. And it did. Heard my mom complain about the Christmas gift I gave her a few years back. Seems small, but I don't know, it just hurt. My dad saying he expected my twin sister to do great things. Not so bad until he followed it up with, "I don't know what we'll do about my name, though." He still doesn't know I heard that, and I plan to keep it that way. When my oldest sister died, my older sister was crying to my mother about how she felt alone. My mother was trying to reassure her and said, "You still have Vampede Vixen though. But my sister said, who cares about her? I want, oldest sister, back. I kinda get it. But this was around the same time my mother told me to my face that it should have been me who died instead because I don't have a husband or kids like my oldest sister did. It seemed like absolutely no one wanted me in my family and they all wished I could have switched places with the one we lost. People wonder why I'm depressed now. Just 5 minutes ago, my coworker told me my other coworker told her she'd quit immediately if I got hired onto the position they're currently at. Up until this point, I thought this girl and I were best friends. I even shared my Netflix password with her. That bit. Background: I'm 12 years younger than my older sisters and I was unplanned. At age 7, I overheard my mom crying and saying I was the reason she didn't love my dad anymore, we were poor, why she isn't happy and that she didn't want to be a mom anymore. She said she didn't know how to love someone who ruined her entire life. It was Christmas Eve and she was drunk talking to her best friend on the phone. It broke my heart, spirit, and that was only the beginning of my awful childhood. Side note, I'm 29 now and moved out when I was 15 to protect myself. I have no contact with my parents and I'm fully aware it wasn't my fault I was born. But damn, this memory still fucks me up. At my first internship, I overheard one of my supervisors ask the others if I was genuinely mentally handicapped. That hurt. Edit: yes, she 100% meant what she said, but not in a compassionate way. She not only insulted me, but insulted the undergrad program I came from for sending her someone so incompetent. Nothing I did or didn't do justified her behavior. For example, she'd ask my opinion, then laugh in my face when I gave it. Or tell me a meeting was in one room, when it was in another, and snap at me for not being in the right place. That was 10 years ago. Now I have a few degrees and I'm happily employed in the same field at a company that values me. I was 7 and basically poor trailer trash, but I asked my friend if I could stay the night. He called his mom to ask and I overheard her say, "Tell him no, I don't want roaches and lice." Really cut me deep. To this day I have extreme anxiety about keeping my house clean. I couldn't help it, I was poor, and our roaches didn't pay rent you bit. While not a mean comment, this comment killed me. I have epilepsy and I overheard my parents and neurologists talking about some of the effects if my seizures continued. Which were basically becoming dependent for everything, short and long-term severe memory loss, and my eye dropping a lot. It really hurt hearing that in a few years I would have gone from honors classes to special ed. Thankfully my seizures have stopped and the only lasting side effect is some memory loss, but man, that sent me spiraling for a long time. My fiancée's mother trying to convince her to break up with me because I was a lazy slob as I was still recovering from injuries I sustained in Afghanistan that limited how active I could be. I once overheard my friend's mom telling her son, who was my partner in our canoe trip, that the reason I was complaining about leg pain all day was that I was just wimpy and complain a lot. A few weeks later I found out I had a bone tumor on my leg. So, I was pretty vilified by that, but then again I did have cancer. All's well now though. Took 18 hours to draw a painting for one. Gave it and felt happy, but soon I found she dumped it in the garbage. How can anyone throw their own portrait painting gifted on the birthday the same day? It really depressed me till now. I recollected the painting from the garbage and took it home. My stepmom saying I was useless, heartless, abusive, leeching, etc. when I couldn't get my dad a birthday gift and instead painted something for him. I was like 16 at the time and had no money, couldn't get my mom to buy something for her ex-husband, and stepmom never wanted to get to know me. Actually pretty sad as art was still a big deal to me at that age, and has changed how I've seen her as a person. Overheard my dad tell my mom that I am not capable enough to go through with my higher studies. One of the worst feelings when your parents don't have any faith on you. I have now graduated from a prestigious school and have 2 degrees to my name. A number of years ago, my sister's phone was super glitchy and would randomly call people. Once it called me, and after I stopped singing and goofing off into the phone trying to get her attention, I just stopped to listen. She was biting to her mother-in-law about me. I honestly can't remember what exactly she was saying, but just the fact of who she was saying it to. This woman barely knows me. If it was one of our other siblings who we're close with, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So I promptly called her back and chewed her a new as whole. When I was in 7th grade I lived in a city podunk town in East Texas. I was weird and an ugly duckling. In order to fit in, I decided to become a cheerleader since all of them were popular and well liked at my school. I made the team, and considered all of them friends, even though they were mean to literally everyone who they didn't consider cool. One day, during a practice, the bases of my stunt, the people who hold you up, dropped me and I fell flat on my ass, which bruised my tailbone really badly. At our first game, we were on the sidelines and during a break I overheard our team captain laughing about how funny it was when her and the other base dropped me on purpose and that they had hoped I would be hurt enough to not be able to participate at the game. As a 13-year-old, it destroyed me, but in order to still seem like I was liked at school I didn't tell anyone about it. I phoned my friend and asked him if he wanted to hang out. I was maybe 10. He said he had to ask his mom. I heard him say, "Lazarus 870 wants to do something. But I don't want to see him." I guess he either thought he muted the phone or did a city job at muffling it or something. Then he came back to the phone. "Sorry, my mom said I can't." He was a terrible friend over the years. My father said he was too busy to come see us on Christmas. I told him my 2-year-old had picked presents out for him. I was also going to announce my second pregnancy. I was at my brother's house when my father called to offer my brother a ride to the airport Christmas morning. The airport is less than 5 minutes from our house. Overheard one of my aunts telling my mother that my arms and legs looked disgusting because of my body hair and she should do something about it. I was 11 and really self-conscious about being a hairy girl. I saw 2 girls that I roomed with for a short while in college had been publicly posting on Facebook about how weird, annoying, and disrespectful I was. Their reasoning was that I was taking an 8:30 a.m. class and only weirdos do that, and that I made a sit-in of noise every morning and disrupted their sleep. It hurt because I tried really hard to not be disruptive. I wouldn't let my alarm go off, because I woke up naturally around the time it was scheduled and would just turn it off before it beeped. This was partially out of anxiety. I changed clothes in the bathroom, tiptoed everywhere, and wouldn't even eat or zip my backpack in the room because I wanted to be quiet. As far as I knew, neither of them woke up any of those mornings, and they never said anything to me about it. I went to school for a year for baking and pastry arts. There was a program-wide competition, and I was one of the only person in our section that wanted to compete. During an exam, I was waiting for some sugar to boil, so I'm standing by the front of the room at a burner, and the other chef in charge of the competition comes in to talk to our chef. They're whispering to each other for a few seconds, and then I clearly hear our chef say, "Well, it's not that she's bad." He shoulder checks, sees that I'm staring right at him, and they step out of the room. Looking back at it now, they were probably just surprised I had wanted to compete, since I'm definitely not the most outgoing person in the universe, but at the time I was devastated. I was a youth pastor. Overheard a parent of one of my youth talking with one of my coworkers about how overweight I was and how I didn't care about my life. They talked about I was setting a terrible example for the youth and how I just disregarded my own health. They said I was gonna die by age 30, I'm 27, and then the mom said that the only reason she got onto SPRC, Staff Parish Relations Committee, the committee who does all the hiring at the church, just so she could get me fired cause I was overweight. She said she manipulated the pastor to get elected to the committee just to make me sign a contract that if I didn't lose the weight, I would be fired. Needless to say, I don't work there anymore cause I left on my own. If another nurse had been taking care of him, he'd be alive right now. Spent the entire night running around trying to stabilize a patient, and my bit of a coworker sat there talking sit with my other bit of a coworker loudly talking about how incompetent I was the entire time. Neither of them lifted a finger to help. When the patient crashed, both of them magically disappeared and it was nurses from the other side of the hallway who came to help with the code. They came after all was said and done, and then I overheard one of them say that. Then they proceeded to tell the unit manager I was incompetent and crying at the bedside. Thankfully neither of them work on the unit anymore. Not overheard, but actually read in a file about me. My mother passed away suddenly and I received a file from my father that she was meaning to give to me. It was a psychological profile, along with it tests, personality tests and other stuff. This wasn't a surprise to me since I'm autistic and have been in therapy as a child. There was a part however about my family and their trouble with living with me. Especially my brothers and my dad were having problems coping and learning how my existing pained them was difficult. My parents got divorced basically because of me. My brothers were embarrassed by me. I'm doing better than expected. I was never supposed to be living in my own. There was talk about assisted living or even an institution, but somehow I managed to leave home as soon as I got 18. I got married, had kids, and even though I struggle a lot, I get by. I even have a good relationship with all my brothers, even though they still have trouble treating me as an adult. It's like always thinking everybody knows you're retarded except you. And then finding out it's true. Not overheard, but accidentally saw messages popping up on my mother-in-law's iPad as she was texting her friend from another room about how I used to be attractive, that I was now fat, and that her son was basically a saint for still being with me. It broke my heart. When I was 8, I decided to make my mum a papier-mâché crocodile for her birthday. I spent weeks on it. I'd get back from school and work a bit more on it, all in secret so it'd be a surprise when I gave it to her. One day I came home from school, excited to get to the crocodile as her birthday was coming up fast now, ran to the kitchen and saw my crocodile all screwed up lying in the kitchen bin. She'd found it and thrown it away. I cried so much. I'm probably blocking out the worst cases. I've learned it's pretty much human nature to talk trash about anyone who isn't present, so no reason to take it personally, but when you're a kid it's a miserable experience. The worst case recently, I have a weird neurological problem in my shoulder and arm that no one has ever been able to diagnose. During an intense flare-up I was referred to a physical therapist by a friend. The therapist saw me once and recommended surgery. I was very reluctant to take this advice, but I didn't say no. I called the surgeon she recommended. Turned out he wasn't accepting new cases. The second appointment there was a scheduling error and I arrived 30 minutes too early. I sat in the front of the office and listened to the therapist making small talk with another patient about how her next patient was a psycho trying to fabricate some kind of malpractice case and refusing to comply with her advice. The receptionist was sitting right in front of me, also listening, but she didn't run back to stop it, so it went on for quite a while. If I had been a psycho trying to manufacture a legal case against her, she was kind enough to do all of the work for me. My boss mocking me to my entire team. To be fair, I was being a bit, but it wasn't without reason. The product I was working on was not working as intended, so I kept getting farther and farther behind overall. When I brought up my concerns with production potentially contaminating my product and causing it to behave incorrectly, he told me the product wasn't the problem. I was because I wasn't working fast enough. I got extremely frustrated because I had zero support on this, massive pressure, and needed to get this done, so with frustration tears running down my face I snapped something along the lines of, "Okay, fine, I guess this is just how we do business now. I'll push it through." An hour later I heard him behind the hoods in his most high-pitched, condescending, mocking, girl voice to everyone I work closely with. I'm the only female on my team, repeating, "Okay, fine, I guess this is just how we do business now. I'll push it through," while he incorrectly recounted our conversation, making me look really bad. The worst part though? There really was a problem with production. It was a huge one and he took credit for discovering it. My team does not respect me anymore after that. I'm now just talked down too. It feels so horrible that I let my emotions get the better of me just once, and in the matter of 5 minutes everyone's perception of me changed so drastically that I can't get anyone to take anything I say seriously. It has gotten so bad that I'm looking for another job and I'm willing to take significantly lower pay just to escape the emotional female ghost that now haunts me. I imagine this will be buried by now, but hey, it's Christmas. I was at a sleepover with my 3 best friends, and was woken by something in the night. While trying to get back to sleep I heard my name, so I obviously listened in. 2 of my friends were discussing how to phase me out of the group. It felt like they talked for hours about it, how weird I was, how boring I was, how much of a chore I was. It was gutting. On the positive side, I found new friends, told them about it all, and my previous friends were pretty much ignored by everyone outside of their little group. So they got what they wanted and I got what I didn't know I needed. In sophomore year of high school I had 3 girls who bullied me mercilessly. I heard a lot of things that hurt my feelings, but the worst one was this one day when my dad was helping me carry things into school for a project. We passed by one of the girls with some of her friends who didn't know me, and I heard her go, "Why does she dress like that? She's so faking weird, she's literally always faking happy about every little thing, it's so faking annoying," really loud. My dad and I both heard it. He is very socially awkward, so he couldn't bring himself to say anything. He also didn't want to acknowledge that he heard it because I think he thinks I didn't want him to bring it up. I just kind of saw his heart break in his eyes. I can imagine his pain. I know I would break down in tears if someone ever said something mean about him, whether he was there or not. We both just kept walking and we stopped talking. It was a long and silent walk. I don't know why she criticized what I was wearing. I was wearing leggings and a plain t-shirt. I felt better in junior year at one point. The bullying had gotten so bad that they would tweet about me and then throw me down farther if I tried to stand up for myself. They'd make up names for me and whisper them when I was doing presentations in class to throw me off. One time I found out my grandmother died while I was in class and one of the girls goes, "Oh my God, she's crying." Really loud. Thankfully my teacher didn't put up with her. They also bullied her daughter at points, though I was the main target. She would tell them off. One even physically wrecked my school project. Anyway, one day I just couldn't handle it. During my free period I went to the auditorium and just cried. I didn't know the tech director was in there with some of my peers. They came up to me and I remember saying, "How do you handle it when someone doesn't like you?" And they all knew who I was talking about. I remember these sweet kids, most of them were a part of the LGBTQ+ community, and they knew what it felt like to be bullied, told me they were jealous. They told me that I was beautiful and smart and that everyone in the school, it was a tiny school, liked me and they couldn't handle that. They also told me they couldn't handle that I was happy in life. That always stuck with me. It changed my view. The girls were all overweight and rude and mean. They were always complaining too. It was clear they weren't happy. Later on, one of them tried to sabotage me in senior year by taking my project I worked for months on and tore it to shreds. It was a trifold board and she ripped everything off of it and scribbled on it. The principal knew what I was going through and told me that if I thought it was sabotage they would treat it as such, which is reason to suspend or even expel. I believe in karma, so I told them I believed her that it was an accident and she was let go with a detention. Well, karma did get them. One of them was arrested a few weeks after graduation. Another was dumped by her boyfriend and is randomly suffering from hair loss. The third dropped out of college, or was kicked out, which is likely for her. But I did of course get my own little revenge on the girl who wrecked my project before graduation. We were friends for a few months in freshman year when we were both new. I had a stick of concealer in my backpack that she always borrowed. One day I realized it was what made me break out. I kept it in the bottom of my bag for 4 years without a cap, collecting crumbs and dirt and bacteria. I had completely forgotten about it. Well, this girl has the nerve to ask me to borrow it one day in senior year after wrecking my project. I gently wiped the top of it off so it appeared clean and let her borrow it. She came in later that week with horrible skin. She had broken out everywhere. I didn't even feel bad.